Today's show is a pretty simple one, answering some common questions with regards to adding users to Google Analytics. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Another common question is adding someone to Google Analytics that doesn't have a Gmail account. And finally, a more complex one, but happens quite often, which is how to get access to a Google Analytics account when you don't have access to add users. So this happens quite a lot. So if you head into Google Analytics, head to the admin section, and then you're presented, or should be presented, with these three columns. So it's important first to understand the structure of a Google Analytics account. So we have a Google Analytics account that we have access to. We then have multiple properties. So usually you would create a property for each website you have access to. So most people will have one account and one property. That's kind of standard, but if you're working in an agency or you're a web design firm or something like that, or maybe you're a company with multiple websites, you may have multiple properties, and then within each property you can have multiple views, and you can add users, account user management, property user management, and view user management. So you can add users at each of those levels. So if there are certain views within your analytics property, maybe there's a reporting view that you want users to have access to, then you would add them, just give them access to that view. If you want them to have access to a property but not other properties in your account, then you would add them at property user management. If you want them to have access to your whole analytics account and everything in it, then you would add them at the top level. So they all follow the same process. Whichever one you click is broadly the same. So I'll just show you how to add them at account level. So we can see a list of the people that have access already in here. And to add a user, we just click the blue plus button, add users, and then we start typing an email address. Okay. And then you can choose to notify the user by email or not. So if this person knows they're being added, then I wouldn't worry too much about that. But this will just send them an email saying, hey, you've been added to a Google Analytics account, etc. And they'll get an email notification. So the next thing to consider is what level of permissions you want to give this user or these users. You can add multiple. So just running through these very quickly. At the top level, manage users effectively gives this person access to pretty much everything, and they can manage users like we are now. You then have edit rights, so that would mean at account level we can create and edit accounts, the properties within them, the views, the filters, the goals, all those sorts of things. So they could, for example, if you added someone with manage user rights, they could remove your access. So just remember that and think carefully about whether you want to do that or not. Edit means you can manage things. If this is an agency that's doing work for you or a web design firm, then they're going to need edit rights. They're going to need to create goals and filters and properties and all sorts of stuff for you. So you certainly want to be able to do that. Collaborate is most of those rights above. But you can create dashboards and reports and annotations and things like that, but you can't start messing about with properties, views and filters. And then read and analyze is basically just view only. So you can't create dashboards, you can't edit any of the settings. You literally have just read and analyze access as you find there. So that's quite simple, and then if you just click the add button, that will then trigger that notification to that person and add that person's rights. So the next thing to think about is, how do we add a user without Gmail? So if you add someone to a Google Analytics account, they need a Google account to log in. Okay, it doesn't have to be a Gmail account. So this person can go to Google and just literally create a Google account with their normal email address, and usually that's possible. If they have a Gmail account, then that's great. The only thing I would caution against is if someone has a work email address where they would normally, get the day-to-day email and the notifications and things, then ideally you want to run that. If they are adding access with a Gmail account that they don't check very often, like me, I have a personal Gmail account, it's full of spam email from ticket companies and e-commerce stores that I never read for purchases I made like 5 years ago or something. So I very rarely check that. So just be careful about using a Gmail account that isn't used very often, because if there are problems in analytics and they're being alerted to that, they are going to miss them. And then finally, how do we get access to an analytics account when we don't know the administrator? We don't have anybody that can add us as a user. So this is a painful thing to do, and it's pretty annoying. What you don't want to do really is start a brand new analytics account and lose all that history and all your configuration. So there is a process that you can go through with Google, and I'll put a link in the footer of in the notes in the video for you to follow. But if you head to the troubleshooter in Google Analytics support, so this is, I can't find an analytics administrator, or my administrator left the company, so that's kind of fairly common. And this will talk you through, basically you have to prove ownership of the site or the app, but generally it's going to be a website. You have to prove ownership of the site. So to do that, we create a text file, we upload that to the server, you follow these instructions. And effectively you then contact Google and say, look, I've put this file on my server, this proves that I have access to the server, therefore you should give me admin access to the analytics account, and that should then give you full admin access to add and remove users, that kind of stuff. So you might need a webmaster to help support you through this. So we do this quite often for a lot of clients, so if you are having problems with this, feel free to contact us via tillison.co.uk, and we'll get someone on the team to help you with that. Stay tuned for more videos on analytics. Make sure you subscribe now, and if you have questions about this or you're stuck, please do ask in the comments.